Hola, hola, ¿qué pasa? My name is Whitney Modesta Collazo, and I am la Hechicera of Horror at Whitscraftngore. Here in my creative conjuring corner, I tell stories of horror and folklore, and I demonstrate makeup or art while I tell some tales of terror or some legendary ghost stories or folklore. So today's tale is La Calle de la Quemada. And what that means is it's the legend of the burnt woman street. And this tale, you know, it was from Mexico. It was a street name, and it was dubbed after a distorted beauty. So this woman was someone who was rumored to have had her beauty set on fire. And that's what I'm going for right here. I have already pre-did some silicone, pre-worked some silicone, and what it is this stuff that I use called 3rd degree. And I just model it, shape it to my face, to how I want things to look and attribute to. But now all I have to do is just to do the paint job. Excuse me, I just had dinner before I did this. So, but what I did, I also like pre-worked some of my sponges. And now all I have to do is just do the pigmentations. So anyway, La Calle de la Quemada. It's like I'm conjuring this tale, because this is my creative conjuring corner. So, yeah. But yeah, this story is from Mexico City. And it's of a merchant daughter, well, the daughter of a merchant, and her name is Beatrice, and her father was, his name was Don Gonzalo Espinosa de Guevara. So that's a long name. There's a lot of long names from Spanish people, Spaniards, and particularly the story goes that Guevara, he came from Spain to Mexico City to continue his works, and that's where he settled. And being a wealthy man, he brought his family with him, his daughter. And I'm sorry if you hear my stomach growling. But yeah, Don Gonzalo, he settled on the street with his family, his daughter. And I haven't done a makeup like this, so there might be, not in a long time, so bear with me. I might pause in between some of the story, because I haven't done stuff like this since I have worked on film sets. So this is something it's not something that I would typically do on myself, usually. But anyway, yes, just as much as Guevara had fallen for Mexico City, in turn, like, Mexico City was pretty much, there was a community there that really had taken to him and his family, particularly Beatrice. And she was very well liked because she was a very personable person. She was a good person. And she would be seen as someone who would spend her time with those less fortunate than her, like those who were poor, homeless, and those in need. And people loved that trait about her. Like, she was so beautiful as a person, but also she was beautiful on the outside. Like, she had the beauty that was so natural, and she was like a magnet to the community that loved her, and everyone wanted to be around her. So not only did, you know, the women and the children take to her, but oh my goodness, the men of this city, of this town, they had fallen for her. And these men, they would try so hard to get her attention. And, you know, she was friendly. She would be friendly with all of these gentlemen, yet, you know, she always managed to make it known that she wasn't interested in these gentlemen. She was very hard to aim for the heart, so to speak. Until one day, there was a gentleman, an Italian Marquis. Not sure how to pronounce his Italian Marquis of Piemonte, in Frenticello. His name was Martin de Scopoli. So, Martin, or Martin, but in Spanish we say the name Martin is Martin. So anyway, Martin was fascinated and infatuated with Beatrice, and he gave it all of his might to make sure that he could get her attention, so very much so that he even went out of his way to make sure other gentlemen wouldn't get the kind of attention that he wanted. Like, he would even fight some of these gentlemen in the streets. Yeah, he was pretty violent with some of the other potential suitors, or people that men that thought they could be suitors for Beatrice. But no, somehow or another, Martin managed to really sweep Beatrice off her feet. And so he courted her. Well, they courted. And Beatrice, she really did find a love for him. Like, she did have a love for this man. And she spent so much time with him. And then she would try to make time in between for her original pursuits of, you know, helping the needy, the poor, and the communities around her. But Martin would try to find his way to make sure that she made time for him as well. And when he did, he made sure to make her aware that he didn't want anyone to intervene. There were stories that he would get violent with those that she had helped, like the homeless or the hungry. there were rumors of that, but he wasn't as threatened by that as he was of, again, other suitors, that he would get violent with those people, with those gentlemen. And it took a while for Beatrice to really notice. And so Beatrice would pray. She would pray, and she would hope that there would be some kind of solution from God, because she was a Catholic woman. She even would pray to Saint Lucia for solutions. So, as you can see, I'm gonna break up the story here a little bit and start talking about what I'm trying to break up here. What I'm using one of my very first makeup palettes, one of my first illustrator palettes. It's called a zombie palette. It's alcohol activated. 91% alcohol activates these palettes, and I haven't used these in a long time. I would use these palettes while I work on film sets, and then I have another one right here. It's Illustrator Effects, Scrapes and Scabs. I think this is the one I need to be using, right, for this burned look. So anyway, yeah. So here's my alcohol bottle that I spritz in here, and with all these sponges that I use to break up. So let's see, I have Blood Tone, H Blood, Bruise Tone, Prime Red. So let me try to do some blood tone and see what I can do with this. And then go over here. You see I have all these like spots. I don't know how much I really want to. I might just go in with my brush at some point and try to kind of model this. Because a lot of the time, sometimes like these things, because it is alcohol activated, they dry out pretty fast. So I think I may end up going in to model some of this. And this is silicone, like I said, that's in here. And I pray it comes out okay. Like, I'm not trying to mock anything here about Beatrice with how she prays. But, or how she did. It's just everyone, you know, people like Beatrice, they have their own faith, they have their own way of going about their belief systems. And that's how Beatrice was trying to handle this relationship, you know. Anytime she heard of how Martin was acting to some of the public, she would definitely take to her faith. And, you know, that's pretty common for a lot of people, you know, taking to their faith to try to understand what's going on that troubles them. I mean, a lot of us have some of our own beliefs to do some of those sort of things, right? Or, I don't know. I have an angled brush. I probably don't need to be using this. I might go for something else here. I should probably have used some black to deepen this first. Again, I haven't done this in quite some time. So maybe I'll go in and get some black to model in, and then I'll go in with the red and the flesh and all of that sort of deal. There we go. Yes. So anyway, when Beatrice, she would take to her faith, right? She'd pray. And because she was Catholic, she would pray to Saint Lucia for a solution. And she was so desperate for an outcome that she genuinely felt that St. Lucia came to her with an answer one day when Martin was filled with more rage, and he had thought that Beatrice was interested in other guys. She took herself to her room again. She prayed, and in her room, when she did, she thought again St. Lucia came to her with that same solution, but through fire, because Beatrice, she was looking at the fire while she was so desperate and praying. And when she had looked through that fire, she cried, and then she just plunged herself into that brazier that had fire with coals. She was kneeling, and she just plunged her face into that fire. So not only did she burn herself, the whole room caught on fire. And then there's a few different stories, versions of who found her. Some people said it was people that had worked for her that had found her. Other sources and stories say that it was Martin that had found her. And when Martin had found her, he saw her face, and she had burned her face so bad. And Martin had asked her, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "I took my face and I plunged my face into the burning coals of this fire because I did not want to see my beauty on the exterior anymore." She was really, really disturbed that she did not want to see her beauty. She did not want to obtain something that was always a fight, because that was something that was a constant in her life. Was, again, you know, with Martin being the jealous person that he was, he thought maybe she would want to be with another suitor because he was jealous and he was insecure, that maybe she wouldn't want him. So but Beatrice, she had told Martin, she was saying to him, it wasn't the beauty that I cared about. It was you and what you thought of me. And that if you loved me, and she felt like his feelings about her, that had made her do that to herself. And then Martin, he told Beatrice that he loved her for her, not just for her beauty. And she told him she wanted him to prove it. How could he love her with her beauty no longer with what it is? And so she decided to make it be more well known and aware to him that she definitely did not want him to have pity on her. She just wanted the honest truth as to how he really felt about her. How is it that you could love me when all you have done is berate other people and then feel the need to come down on others, especially the men that I did not have interest in? Over what? For what? For just the insecurity that you think that I might leave you? Please prove it, Martin, is what she would say and plead to him. So Martin didn't hesitate, and he just decided to take her and wed her. So he took her hand in marriage. And so it was said that when they got married, that Beatrice, she took a veil, and when she went down the aisle, she would take this veil so no one could see her burn scars and the wounds that she had on her face. So she went down the aisle in a black, almost white, ashen veil, because she was so ashamed of what she had done to herself. She didn't want the public to see, even though she didn't really regret for herself for what she had done, but she regretted knowing that there could have been fear from others towards her, because all she ever wanted to do was to project beauty and grace of inner beauty to her community. She didn't really care for this part. She didn't care for the exterior. So she felt shame because that's all she ever wanted to express. So she hid this. And then it's said that Beatrice, after she wed Martin, that she would only leave home for church and her community wouldn't see her. They wouldn't see her outside of church, but every time she came to church, she would wear the same veil, the ashen black and white veil that she felt was her, that was part of her, because she didn't want them to see her face and what she had done. So I do have some things to say and express about Beatrice as someone who has conflicted self-harm. But before I get to that, I want to comment on this makeup that I have done. I have tried to attempt to do this burn silicone makeup, and I haven't broken some of this up, though I probably should, as I continue to talk about Beatrice. So, anyway, with Beatrice being someone having some popular tale in Mexico of being the burnt woman, the woman who was the burnt beauty. She burned her beauty out of desperation for love. And I thought, you know, looking at something like that, reading a story like this is pretty alarming. Coming across a story like this is pretty intense, because I've heard of people doing so many different things. I probably should have said a trigger warning before I started this story, but I'm going to go ahead and say trigger warning to those who are sensitive that know or don't know the issues of self-harm, because this is somewhat graphic. I tried to kind of keep it a little toned down, even though I haven't done this kind of thing in so long. So, but yeah, as you can see around the silicone, I tried to keep it light with some of this alcohol makeup. I really don't think I'm going to use that, so here we go. But yeah, so anyway, someone like Beatrice, someone who is a good person, you know, we often are shocked. Some people are shocked when they hear of people when they hurt themselves, or worse, when people have heard of those that they love or care for in situations where we don't always understand. Like, we don't always know. Some people could be smiling and we don't know how they're feeling on the inside. It's like Beatrice. She's always helping other people, but she didn't really help herself so much in her situation. As best as she could was through her faith. And what else, you know, that's the best that some people can do, and that's okay. When you have your faith, but having that inner strength and having that inner confidence and that self-love, that's the thing that I felt like, knowing about this story, learning about this story, that I've come to the conclusion is that Beatrice, even though she had love for people, she lacked self-love. And that's the thing that really, really caught my attention, because it made me think about all the ways that people have gone about self-harm. I've never heard of anybody burning themselves. And when I thought about it, the more I thought about it, and I wanted to do this story and talk about Beatrice and Martine and their conflict, I took this, before I did this story, I talked to my uncle, and I've mentioned him before in the last story that I told, which was around Halloween time, because that story also dealt with a fire. But I didn't really talk to him so much about that story until after the fact. Until after I had finished, you know, my story, talking and everything. So, no, I had a conversation with my uncle about the story, saying, okay, so I spent some time hearing about the story from Mexico, even though I have family from Jalisco. There's just so much to learn from in other regions. And then learning that this story was pretty prominent in Mexico City, this one drew my attention, especially because of the issues that I'm talking about right now. It's the self-harm, or the fires, the situations that Beatrice has put herself through. And so I said to my uncle, I asked him, I said, have you ever heard of stories in which people have harmed themselves with fire? And he told me more of his encounters in his professional career as a fireman is that most people that, you know, it's something he's dealt with was more accidental fires, and not so much of those that were intentional at the time of his career when he was younger. And the only incident that he had dealt with or known of someone was in 2005. And in 2005, he was doing EMS training. And part of his EMS training was that he had to sit with a victim, and he had to observe and listen to the stories of what happened to this said victim. Now this person, he heard that, from what he can recall, that this person felt like, you know, they were at the end of their rope as far as, you know, their life, and down on their luck. And the only solution that they had was to set themselves on fire. And the way they did it, that this individual did it, was using gasoline. I think this person doused themselves in gasoline and set themselves on fire. And the person did not execute what they intended to do, which was to unalive themselves. And so that this victim was sedated because, you know, he just said it's unimaginable, the pain that a victim like that goes through, because all of these scars, all of these kinds of, you know, this probably isn't what it really is supposed to look like. It's been a while since I've looked at things of this nature. They're supposed to be like burns, and but I've only heard him say that, you know, those that do, you know, burn themselves, it's our natural instinct when we do touch fire. Like when we touch it, we go at it, but then we flinch. It's like our instinct to pull away from the fire. And he was just saying that those who, you know, have done things, if there was a story like those who have done what the victim that he was around have done, it's because they find the most horrible way, the most desperate way to identify and cope with the pain that they deal with on the interior. And I just don't know. I can't really fathom it either. I think a lot of us have issues in the world. We don't know what people like Beatrice was going through. She may look so happy and beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, she was really conflicted and going through something. We don't always know what people are going through. Like, I don't know the full story of what the sedated victim went through that my uncle had sat with and had learned about. While my uncle and I were talking about this legend, he did say something to me about, though Beatrice in the story, he said that while it's a story of self-harm, we agreed that there was some abuse going on. Knowing that her love, the suitor, Martin, how angry, how jealous he was of her, and well, not of her, but of, I'll get to that, like of other people that took interest in her, the gentleman, and he would get violent, and she took that to heart. She made that her problem. And we thought, what if the story really wasn't her? What if Beatrice didn't burn her face in the brazier coals? What if it was Martine? What if Martine did that to her? Because most of the time, my uncle says, there aren't a lot of people that choose to do fire as self-harm or to unalive themselves because of how hard it is instinctually for us to touch and flinch. It's our instinct.